Welcome to Skytech-Lens. It all started with a simple letter. For David Miller, a third-generation factory manager in Ohio, the envelope from his biggest client in Ontario was anything but routine. The contract that supported half his workforce was not being renewed. David's story is not unique. Across America's industrial heartland, over 300 factory owners received the same devastating message. This sudden, coordinated move by Canada is one of the most significant economic shocks to the U.S. in decades. For years, the U.S.-Canada trade relationship was a model of stability. American factories relied on Canadian demand, which accounted for nearly 15% of all U.S. industrial exports. The idea that this relationship could fracture overnight was unthinkable. But this is not a minor trade spat. It's a deliberate pivot by Canada to untangle its economy from U.S. dependence. The cancellation of hundreds of contracts in 60 days has left factories silent and communities reeling. What's alarming is that this isn't about American productivity or quality. U.S. factories delivered exactly what was asked. Instead, it's the result of eroding trust, political volatility, and a shift in global trade. Canada, once America's most steadfast ally, now sees the U.S. as unreliable and has quietly built new bridges to the world. The story of this unraveling is a cautionary tale about how quickly the certainties of the past can vanish. To understand this crisis, we must see it from Ottawa's perspective. Years of unpredictable U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods eroded trust and made long-term planning impossible. In response, Canada launched a national supply chain restructuring strategy, a calculated plan to reduce dependence on the U.S., the goal diversify suppliers and protect economic sovereignty. Cost was a factor too. American goods burdened by higher labor, taxes, and health insurance became less competitive. Canada found suppliers in Europe and Asia offering similar quality at up to 20% lower prices. Trade agreements like the CPTPP and CETA gave these new partners tariff advantages over the U.S. American goods, already expensive, now faced new barriers. The U.S. was priced out of a market it once dominated, not by a rival but by its closest friend. Canada's strategy wasn't just about leaving the U.S., it was about joining the world. Through CETA, the EU became a prime partner, offering tariff-free access for European goods that outcompeted American products. As a CPTPP member, Canada opened its doors to Asian suppliers, devastating U.S. auto part manufacturers. Lumber orders shifted from the U.S. to Southeast Asia and Russia, leaving American mills with unsold inventory. Canada also turned to South America for raw materials and agricultural products, further reducing reliance on U.S. farms and mines. Domestically, Canada incentivized its industries to buy Canadian, creating a formidable barrier for U.S. exporters. The result, the U.S.-Canada economic corridor is now just one of many routes into Canada. American businesses now face competition from state-supported European firms, efficient Asian manufacturers, and low-cost South American producers. Canada has built a diversified, resilient supply chain that no longer centers on the U.S. for American industry. Reclaiming that central role may now be impossible. The North American trade order has been fundamentally redrawn. The fallout has been swift and brutal for American industries. The Midwest's automotive sector was hit first. Over 70 manufacturers saw revenue drop by up to 50%. Production lines, once tailored for Canadian demand, now sit idle. Steel mills in the Rust Belt face oversupply and plummeting prices, forcing layoffs and shift cuts. Heavy machinery exports to Canada fell by up to 35% in months. Wood processing plants in the Pacific Northwest and Southeast slashed output as Canada turned to global suppliers. American logging companies and sawmills are left with surplus and few buyers. New Canadian technical standards raised compliance costs for U.S. food suppliers, making them uncompetitive. Canadian retailers now stock European and Australian imports instead. Niche markets have been devastated. U.S. wine and spirits exports to Canada collapsed by 60% in a single year. The economic pain is widespread and deep. Beyond the numbers lies a human tragedy. Tens of thousands of American workers have lost steady wages, health benefits, and security. In small towns, a single factory closure can threaten a community's very existence. Older workers face unemployment with few prospects. Younger families consider leaving their hometowns. Local businesses struggle, property values fall, and the psychological toll is immense. The loss of manufacturing jobs erodes dignity and hope, creating a cycle of decline that's hard to break. The Canadian trade crisis is hollowing out the heart of industrial America, one town at a time. The crisis is rippling through the entire American economy. For every major manufacturer hit, dozens of smaller suppliers now face existential threats. Trucking, logistics, and warehousing businesses have seen their work evaporate. Railways and ports are cutting back as cross-border freight declines. Farmers too are left with unsold crops as food processors lose Canadian markets. Local economies are starved of tax revenue, hurting schools, roads, and services. What began as a targeted trade policy has become a full-blown regional economic crisis. Washington's response has been frantic and fragmented. The White House has vowed to protect American jobs while officials scramble for emergency negotiations with Canada. Legal action under the USMCA is on the table, but results may be slow. Aid packages are being drafted, wage subsidies, tax cuts, and loans for struggling companies. States like Michigan and Ohio are launching their own rescue efforts, sending delegations to Canada and offering local support. But there's no unified national strategy. The urgency is clear, but the path forward is uncertain. America is racing to catch up with a crisis it never saw coming. American companies are fighting for survival with adaptation and ingenuity. Some are redesigning products to meet new Canadian standards, though it's costly and uncertain. Others are urgently seeking new markets in South America, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Smaller firms are forming export alliances to share costs and risks. Technology is key. Firms are adopting digital tools to make supply chains more agile and transparent. Many are shifting to higher-value, specialized products where American innovation can shine. But these strategies take time and resources many don't have. The question, can they adapt fast enough to survive the shock? As the dust settles, the biggest question is whether the damage is permanent. Canada is locking in new supply chains with long-term contracts and investments. The U.S. market share lost may be gone for a generation. This crisis is a stark warning about the risks of volatile trade policy. Even the closest partners have breaking points. The seamless US-Canada partnership may be gone, replaced by competition and uncertainty. The priority now support devastated workers and towns and retrain for the industries of the future. For businesses, relentless innovation and market diversification are essential. This is a painful lesson in the fragility of global relationships. America's future prosperity depends on learning from this costly mistake and rebuilding trust with its partners. Thanks for watching a video, and subscribe to the channel now for more updates. Thanks.